So Wellington, we are here to address some concerns in the media. It was expressed on TVJ Sports last night about irregularities in the zoning of the second round, particularly your institution. How do you respond to those?
All right, so first of all, I would rather the response in terms of the schedule in itself be addressed by the competitions officer whose responsibility it is to create the schedule with the oversight coming from the competitions chairman. So I want to establish that I, Keith Wellington, or any president at all of ISSA does not interfere in scheduling. We provide guidelines, so for example, dates for competition, policies regarding, for example, how it is that we should structure the competitions. But in terms of the actual fixtures, we have nothing to do with it. And in this case, the schedule was created and published from August this year. We have a policy that once we have created the schedule and we've asked for feedback and gotten feedback or not gotten the feedback, once it's final, we do not interfere with the fixtures because we do not want to be accused of favoring any team or fixing any particular game. So if you look at the schedule, you will recognize that from as early as August, it was pointed out that if this team wins this zone, then they will go in this next group and so on, who will play at home and so on. So my concern, as I said, is not necessarily to address the concerns raised by Mr. Gabriel. I think that is the responsibility of the competitions officer and the chairman. But I'm very concerned about the motive that he has attached to whatever exists. And, I want to probably just use 2 or 3 examples to point out that there could really be no motive or any intent to have set this for STETHS. So you look at the fixtures and you realize that if this particular fixtures was used for the last 15 years, neither STETHS nor Manchester would have found themselves in this particular position, right? Both STETHS and Manchester found ourselves in this particular group because both of us did not do what we have done for the last 15 years, right? So STETHS may have gotten a particular advantage this year, having not done as well as they would have done last year. Mr. Gabriel would have attributed this particular scenario to a bias that is being held by ISSA for STETHS. But when you look at the fixtures, you look at what Manchester has done over the last 17 years, you would recognize that had Manchester done the same thing that they did the last 16 years, they would have played all 3 of their round 32 games in Mandeville. Does that suggest that we were fixing the fixtures for Manchester High? Just a week before the end of the first round, Manchester High attempted to schedule a game that ISSA had already ruled on, right? When it came to our attention, we pointed out to Manchester, no, you can't do that. If this fixtures was set and a ruling was made on a particular game, you can't then go and try to arrange that game so that if you're at a disadvantage, you're second in the group, you can play that game and get some more goals to win the game and avoid going in the group that you are now in. When we pointed out to him, you can't change in the middle of a competition. So I think that Mr. Gabriel is fully aware that our policies at ISSA is that once we have determined a particular fixtures, we do not make adjustments to fit a particular team or a set of teams. And so I'm really not pleased that he has gone about discussing his concerns this way. I feel that he should raise the concern if he has it, but there's a defined mode that we would expect him to follow. In this particular case, he has raised the concern he has brought the concern to the public after the game was played, so it could not have been addressed to fix the game using the method that he's using now. Right, and I'm really not pleased that what has come out has sought to question the integrity of not just the president, but the competitions officer, the competitions chairman.
He has said that
Mr. Gabriel first brought it to my attention at lunch that I was having with both him and his wife and another colleague. So it had nothing to do with football, right? And I pointed out to him when he asked why did this happen and we need to change. I said to him what I'm saying to you. No, Mr. Gabriel, it's not going to change. You don't change a schedule in the middle of a competition. What is in the book, we will have to go by it. We can't just take away the advantage that you are saying that STETHS has because you are not pleased. I advised him that he could speak with the chairman of the competition, Mr. Wright, which I am told that he did. I'm also told that he was told that Mr. Wright indicated to him that he would look at it, but he doesn't see this changing in the middle of the competition. So it was addressed. It may not have been addressed in the way that he's recommending, but it was addressed. He actually came, he actually played the game, And then he went public with this, without even sharing his concerns with his colleague principals, who have the authority to make recommendations and make changes to how we function.
Do you have concerns about the questioning of your integrity, seeing that you wear both hats as principal of STETHS, schooling questions, and the president of STETHS?
I'm very concerned. Anybody who knows me and who would have known me for years know that I'm somebody who is very concerned about my image, about my public image and how people view me. Because for me, my most valuable asset is who I am. And I think that my integrity is something that I treasure. I don't get myself involved in anything at all that will raise concerns about my motive. So to see my colleague and somebody who I have a very strong relationship with, up to last night we were together for more than an hour. Right? Somebody who have a very strong relationship with, who we speak freely to each other. So I'm very concerned about that, and that is something that I want to be addressed. And I've said to the chairman, both the competence chairman and the competence officer and the competence chairman, that they need to address whatever concern is being raised about STETHS itself. But the issue of the integrity of the organization, of the president, of the competence officer, that is something that I think that I need to address. And as I said before, this is not something unique. This is not the first time I question. In the Headley Cup finals, for example, may they raise the question of why do they need to go to Manchester High to play Manchester High in the finals of the Headley Cup. And we pointed out to Mayday that this was set from early. Mayday was recommended that we go to Friendship, another location in the parish, and we said no. This was to the benefit of Manchester High. And as I said to you before, if Manchester High did what they did for the last 16 years, they would have played 3 games in Mandeville. Was it that ISSA was not setting the schedule for them? And I can point out numerous other examples of situations like this where, yes, some people may view it as not being acceptable, but we have a policy that we follow. Mr. Gabriel, as a member of the association, is free to, and he's very vocal in our meetings, and he's listened to. So he's free to come to our meetings and make suggestions, make recommendations that I don't have the power to overturn. The floor would.
Mr. Gabriel has raised his concern. Has there been any other concerns from any other schools, any other principals?
I have not gotten specific to this matter. I have not gotten any other concern. And if you look at this specific, the specific concern that I understand Mr. Gabriel to be raising is the fact that STETHS finished second in their group and was given 2 home games when only 3 teams in total got that benefit. Right? Again, it was established from day one it may not have been STETHS who got that benefit. The 3 teams that got the benefit, as I said, I've asked the competence officer and the chairman to explain how those 3 zones were selected to get that benefit, because Paul Mogul eventually benefited from coming second and playing 2 other games. Malden benefited from coming second in their group and getting 2 home games. So I've asked the chairman, both competence and the Augusta Cup chairman, to put something in writing to respond to Mr. Gabriel and our membership as to how we came about that decision.
Finally, in terms of next year and setting the fixtures for next year, will there be any change to how you have been doing it to facilitate the comfort and ease of everyone?
All right, so every year we look at what we think is the best option available to us, and we have been making adjustments over the recent past just to find the best fit for our competitions. So, for example, one of the significant changes, well, we did 2 significant things this year. One, we went back to our previous format where we had a round of 32 with teams in groups of 4 rather than the seeding thing. And it's the basic reason for doing that was that we found out that with the seeding thing, we had teams from as early as mid-October having to travel the entire breadth of the island. So if you're going to win the Augusta Cup and in mid-October you are in St. James and you have to travel to St. Thomas to play a game, or vice versa, and you start doing that from October, by the time you get to December, it's going to be it's going to have a negative effect. And so we went back to that format. Another thing that we did was to try and create larger groups of 8. And as a result of that, we had each team being guaranteed 7 games. What happens is that the weaker teams, so you hear people talking about the tiered competition, wanting a Division 1, Division 2. This is something that we are trying to do to not have the teams getting 18 love against one team twice. Right. So what we did was to have that situation where the top 4 from the group went on to play 3 additional games to get to 10. That is why we ended up with a situation where we had 13 groups rather than the usual 15 or 16. And so we ended in a situation where you had, of the 8 groups, 5 of them had 2 first place winners and 3 only had 1. And so we ended up now with having to determine which team of those 3 would be given the 2 home games, because we could not schedule the fixtures for the 3 second place teams to each get 1 home game and 1 neutral. It couldn't work like that, right? It would have to be a situation where either 1 team gets 2 home games, or the 3 teams would have to play their games on neutral venues. Or you could give 1 team a neutral, 2 teams one of their games at neutral venue, and the other team now would still have to play away twice. But as I said, the competitions officer and the chairman will do a better job of explaining all of that to Mr. Gabriel and those persons who don't necessarily understand the intricacies of doing a schedule.
Thank you, sir.